Hi everyone, I'm Ann Cox and very happy you decided to listen to this talk about seeing God in the animals around us. That tells me something about you, that you're fascinated with the non-human creatures that we share this earth with. The Bible actually encourages this attitude. Job 12:7-10 says, "But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will teach you. Or speak to the earth, and it will teach you. Or let the sea inform you. Which of all of these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature, and the breath of all mankind." The verse seems to indicate that communing with animals can somehow reveal more of God's very nature and existence. I think the key word in the verse is ask. Maybe that means stay with, observe, see what understandings come. Humans have always tried to find some kind of common language with different animals and to try to make out what they're thinking. And sometimes animals seem to be trying to communicate with us. Of course, the outcomes have been everything from frightening attacks and animal abuse to awesome encounters and deep, caring relationships like the ones we have with our dogs and cats. It's not reasonable to expect other species to master the complexity of human language or to grasp the abstract concepts that we do. After all, our brain is 7 times larger than it should be given our body size. But you can expect to communicate with them about concepts that are well within their mental capacity, using simple language. There are some amazing examples of this. Look at man's best friend. Service dogs can learn to find exit signs, bathroom gender signs, and report what disease they smell in a urine sample by going to a sign on the wall and naming that disease. I can't even imagine the training process on that one. Dogs can be trained to alert when they find certain scents, including explosives and even bed bugs. The alert can be a specific bark or position and can be accepted as evidence in court. And what can we humans understand about dog communications? Well, scientist Stanley Coren has identified 56 signals which untrained dogs can make and that people can understand, including 10 barks, 5 growls, 11 tail signals, 5 ear and eye positions, 5 mouth signals, and 12 body positions. We're pretty good at accurately assessing the barks of dogs we can't even hear. That we can't even see, but that we can hear. We can tell if the bark is aggressive, playful, or stressed. People who don't even own dogs can do this. There are now algorithms to categorize barks, and you can buy apps such as Bowlingual, Talk with Your Dog, and TalkDog. How about birds? Most bird species have at least 6 calls which humans can learn to understand and to grasp what it means in terms of danger, distress, hunger, and the presence of food. But beyond just scientific data, sometimes when the animal-human divide is somehow crossed, there can be beautiful emotions and awareness inside us. It can be an occasion when we sense the presence of the divine, maybe in a way that isn't altogether clear, maybe in a symbolic way, at just the right timing in your life. Consider the dragonfly. In almost every part of the world, it symbolizes change, and the kind of change that comes with mental and emotional maturity and the understanding of the deeper meaning of life. The dragonfly has the ability to be comfortable on water, land, and in the air. It can move at an amazing 45 miles an hour, hover like a helicopter, fly backwards like a hummingbird, fly straight up, down, and on either side. What is mind-blowing is the fact that it can do this while flapping its wings only 30 times a minute, while mosquitoes need to flap theirs 600 times and houseflies 1,000 times a minute. The flying stage of the adult dragonfly lasts only a few months and leaves nothing to be desired. This lifestyle symbolizes and exemplifies the virtue of living in the moment and living life to the fullest. Almost 80% of the dragonfly's brain power is dedicated to sight. It can see 360 degrees all around, an example to us to look beyond the limitations of the human self. In the Bible, Jesus often referred to birds. Birds as revelations of how God has set things up. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? Yet not one of them is forgotten by God? Indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Jesus used a bird as a reminder about something significant. Peter, truly I tell you, this very night before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Birds are also metaphors for God's presence and peace. Just as Jesus was coming up out of the water, he saw heaven being torn open and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased." So there's something very profound and vital that birds reveal to us. It's not just what they do for the environment. It's what they do for our souls. Birds go everywhere, so you might have a barn owl in the loft of a factory, giving those workers a way to have a close encounter with nature. Whenever I go to Lowe's, there are birds tweeting and flying all around in the garden center. I bet the salespeople notice. Birds call to our hearts and spirituality. They can leave us emotionally touched in some powerful way. Nature poet Mary Oliver captures this in her poem, "I Happen to Be Standing." I don't know where prayers go or what they do. Do cats pray while they sleep half asleep in the sun? Does the possum pray as it crosses the street? While I was thinking this, I happened to be standing just outside my door with my notebook open, which is the way I begin every morning. Then a wren in the privet began to sing. He was positively drenched in enthusiasm. I don't know why. And yet, why not? I wouldn't persuade you from whatever you believe, or whatever you don't. That's your business. But I thought of the wren singing. What could this be if it isn't a prayer? So I just listened, my pen in the air. Now for some of my favorite stories that show how God can be speaking to us, kind of permeating, giving us insight in our encounters with animals. First, a whale of a story. In December 2013, there was a front page article in the San Francisco Chronicle about a female humpback whale who was weighted down by hundreds of pounds of crab traps that caused her to struggle to stay afloat. She also had hundreds of yards of line rope wrapped around her body, her tail, her torso, and a line tugging in her mouth. A fisherman spotted her just east of the Farallon Islands outside the Golden Gate, and radioed an environmental group for help. Within a few hours, the rescue team arrived and determined that she was so bad off, the only way to save her was to dive right in and untangle her, work for hours with curved knives, and that's what they did. And eventually they freed her. When she was free, the divers say she swam in what seemed like joyous circles. She then came back to each and every diver, one at a time, and nudged them, pushed them gently around, as if she was thanking them. Some say it was the most incredibly beautiful experience of their lives. The guy who cut the rope out of her mouth said her eyes were following him the whole time, and he will never be the same. What do you think about this? What does it make you think about? Maybe our moving experiences in nature aren't so much about witnessing something of the natural world itself, but they're more about discovering something in ourselves, something about life, something about God that God wants us to see. And now another story, an elephant story. Lawrence Anthony is a legend in South Africa. The author of The Elephant Whisperer, he bravely rescued wildlife and rehabilitated elephants all over the globe from all sorts of human atrocities, including the courageous rescue of the Baghdad Zoo animals during the U.S. invasion in 2003. On March 7, 2012, Lawrence Anthony died. 2 days later, a total of 31 elephants showed up at his South African house. The people who witnessed this were obviously awed that these animals sensed the precise timing of Lawrence's death and then expressed their profound memory of him and emotions in such an organized way, walking slowly for days, making their way in a solemn single file from their wild habitat to his house. A rabbi remarked that if there were ever a time when we can truly sense the wondrous interconnectedness of all beings, it is when we reflect on these elephants of Thula Thula. A man's heart stops, and hundreds of elephants' hearts are grieving. This man's oh so abundantly loving heart offered healing to these elephants, and now they came to pay loving homage to their friend. Lawrence's wife, Francoise, was especially touched, knowing that the elephants hadn't been to his house for well over 3 years, but yet they knew where they were going. They stayed for 2 days and 2 nights without eating anything. Then one morning they left, making their long journey back. And a final personal story. My mother died in a hospice facility outside of Durham, North Carolina. She entered it on a Tuesday at dusk and died at sunrise on the following Sunday morning. Each morning, hospice provided birdseed for us to scatter on the patio outside of the sliding glass door to her room. The first 2 days, I remember a little chipmunk. It kept darting in and out of the bushes that framed the concrete square. Mama caught him out of the corner of her eye. Not so sure she liked him. He would grab a seed and then disappear. But once she was unconscious, we never saw that chipmunk again. Beyond the patio was a grassy slope and a view of a distant pond where one or two white geese and a swan sailed around. Between the slope and the pond was an imperceptible road. But we knew it was there because once or twice we saw the roof of a car moving by until out of sight. Later that road would focus into view, and the image still remains in me. A toy-like truck, a black box on wheels, that took her body who knows where. One glimpse was all I would allow myself. But the images of the little chipmunk and that white swan at sunrise are in me, and I consider them holy. In conclusion, let me share a quote from Anne Frank. The best remedy for those who are afraid, lonely, or unhappy is to go outside, somewhere where they can be quite alone with the heavens, nature, and God, because only then does one feel that all is as it should be, and that God wishes to see people happy amidst the simple beauty of nature. As long as this exists, and it certainly always will, I know that then there will always be comfort for every sorrow, whatever the circumstances may be. And I firmly believe that nature brings solace in all troubles. And this written by a young girl in an attic. So when you go outside for a walk or a jog, as many are doing these days, take the earbuds out and put the phone on silence. When you're left with just the real sounds and sights of nature, maybe the voices and thoughts in your own head won't be something you want to muffle after all. Maybe something will come to you when you stop and watch every jerky movement of a squirrel, or look at where that stray cat actually goes, or how the dragonfly suddenly appears and stays hovering around your shoulders. Maybe when you track where the cardinal zooms and lands, you may find your own monkey mind relaxing, even living more in the present moment, and considering and reconsidering your own movements and motives. God comes to us in a myriad of ways, shifting our emotions, helping us see what to do more of and less of, and what to let alone to work itself out. The non-human animals making their way each day can be God's revelations to us, together and personally. Ask the animals, and they will tell you. Amen.